Welcome to Coaching with Confidence and Care podcast, inspired by common topics that arise in coach training, mentoring, and supervision. I'm Luba Desamidze, the founder of Upthink Coaching. I'm an active coach trainer, mentor, and supervisor. If you're listening, you're probably looking to deepen your skills as a coach. I hope this podcast will be a helpful resource for you and contributes to your journey. Hello, and I'm so excited to share some big news. Our program, Beyond the Tools, Advanced Coaching in Emotional, Intercultural, and Relational Spaces, has recently been awarded ICF Level 2 accreditation. This means the ICF has recognized the depth, intention, and integrity of the program. Coaches who go through it can now confidently use it toward their PCC credential. But more than that, it's a beautiful affirmation of the kind of coaching we believe in: deep, relational, and transformational. We are proud and grateful and can't wait to welcome the next cohort in September 2025. Today, in the episode, I promise to unpack the coaching mindset for you. It's such a common phrase, a coaching mindset. So let's see what is assumed when we mean a coaching mindset and why it is not just a set of attitudes, but it is a disciplined psychological orientation and intentional practice. This episode is not only for coaches. If you are a leader who wants to use a coaching approach, if you are an educator, a parent, a small business owner, or entrepreneur, well, basically anyone who wants to learn more about a coaching mindset, you'd find this relevant. So my intention is to make this episode valuable and helpful for the bigger audience, not exclusively coaches. Nobody is born with a coaching mindset. That should be a relief for you. So even if you feel you're not fully embodying a coaching mindset, and you still sometimes have an urge to give advice, or maybe your inner dialogue gets a little too loud, or you hope a client would go in a certain direction or do a certain thing, that's all okay. That's work in progress. We've all been there. And it definitely happened to me in my coaching career when I was hoping maybe in some sessions that a client would take a certain direction. And once they took the direction, I was really excited because I thought that they are taking the best direction possible for them. And although I did not advise or tell them what to do, I did have my own hopes and expectations. And those did not allow me to stay fully open to the multitude of possibilities. So a common question is, what exactly is a coaching mindset? Is it just about being nice and asking questions instead of telling? A coaching mindset is actually part of ICF coaching competencies, core coaching competency 2, which is called Embodies a Coaching Mindset. And the description of the competency is: develops and maintains a mindset that is open, curious, flexible, and client-centered. Core competencies are divided into the competencies of doing and competencies of being. Right? So when we say, is coaching mindset about asking questions? Well, asking questions is more about doing, not about being. Well, being nice, actually it can be both, right? Sometimes we are just doing nice things, which does not necessarily mean that we are genuinely embodying those intentions in that specific situation. A coaching mindset is a being competency, meaning that it is a totally different way of being, of seeing other people, of perceiving yourself, perceiving the world, perceiving your relationship with others, and being self-aware in the first place about how you are being. Now, going back to this example of being nice or doing nice things. I've seen many times in mentoring sessions when a coach wants to challenge their client for their own benefit, by the way, for the client's benefit, and not to scratch the coach's ego, they may have a hunch about the client that they really want to express. They really want to address something uncomfortable in what the client is saying, because they feel there may be a lot of energy trapped that is waiting to be released. So there's a powerful process inside the coach with all these feelings and all these intentions, and a coach may sometimes be annoyed by the client talking too much, not making progress. Even if you're not a coach, I'm sure you can relate. And you've been in conversations where you got triggered by someone and therefore you were not able to stay present and accepting. You were more with yourself than with the other person. However, you could not express it because you had to stay polite and professional. Although you may have been a little bit disturbed inside. To me, this is the difference between doing nice things and genuinely accepting another person without judgment and following them and staying present with them and staying open-minded and curious about them. Being nice doesn't mean that you have to be a convenient coach, stepping back in sessions because you cannot have a courageous conversation with your client. It is more about desire to do good to others, this inclination to be nice and kind. And this can result in holding space or sometimes confronting the client, not with the intention to catch the client doing something wrong, but with the intention to help them increase their capacity and range of behaviors or range of reactions. Now, if we go back to the definition of the coaching mindset, there are a few main features if we summarize it. Lifelong learning, open-mindedness, curiosity, self-awareness and self-reflectiveness, emotional regulation, mental and emotional agility, that is, being flexible and always putting the client or the other person first. So it's not a fixer's mindset, it's not the expert's mindset, it's not a helper mindset, it's a partner mindset. So when you look through the behaviors under that core competency too, it may be quite useful actually to reflect on which of those behaviors are easiest for you and which of those behaviors are more challenging for you. So you can use the description of the core competency as a checklist, basically to check yourself. For some people, that would be about staying open-minded and not giving advice. For others, it would be more about emotional regulation, working with your own emotions, as well as your client's emotions. For others, it would be something else. Take a look at those core competency behaviors after you listen to the podcast and see for yourself which of those behaviors may need a bit more intentional practice. Now, how can this be applied by someone who's not a coach, but someone who uses coaching skills at work? Basically, it means that in every interaction, in every relationship, you are remaining self-aware and you're able to self-regulate in a way that does not damage relationship with another person with whom you are interacting. It's about being attuned to the other person. It's about acceptance and open-mindedness and I'm okay and you're okay position at all times. Really remaining a thinking partner for the other person. It is about being sensitive and intuitively responsive to another person in the moment. A coaching mindset is about embodying a non-directive and a non-judgmental attitude. And by judgmental here, I don't necessarily mean criticism, which is certainly a very strong form of judgment. By being non-judgmental, I also mean not interpreting. You observe, notice, remain sensitive to everything that happens in the space between you and the client or the other person, but you do not interpret. You do not make conclusions in your own mind about another person's intentions, emotions, or thoughts. You are being a transparent and direct communicator who's curious and open and uses exploratory techniques. You do not assume or judge. You ask questions and Those are great qualities for anyone to have. I believe 90% of all the miscommunication that happens may be due to assumptions or interpretations, mismatched or misaligned expectations. This is so much easier to avoid when you don't have any assumptions or expectations of the other person, but you're responding to them in the moment and you're clarifying with them politely and directly. You do not expect another person to show up in a different way, and you can choose your response to them. So overall, it's a lot more than just being less directive. It's also about being inviting. I believe that a coaching mindset reflects a deeper shift in how we lead. As a coach, I face this request very, very often when leaders say, I want my team, I want my people to show more initiative and ownership. I want them to be more accountable. I want them to come up with ideas, but those qualities cannot be developed in their team if there's no culture of ownership, accountability, creativity, experimentation, trial and error, the growth mindset. So a coaching mindset really helps to create the conditions for someone's proactive attitude, because when people feel accepted and respected for what they are, they feel safer and a lot of defenses may go down. So people feel more attuned to themselves. They're not holding back if there's a problem. They know they can say it and it can be accepted without tantrums. If they don't feel like agreeing with something, they can share this without hesitation. Basically, a coaching mindset in a leader can prepare the grounds for psychological safety. You know, when I lead sessions, it doesn't matter if that's a one-on-one session or it's a team session, I often normalize things. I literally say things like, it's okay if you don't know. It's okay not to know right now. Take your time. We've got time. I normalize silence. I normalize emotions. I normalize hesitation. And through normalizing, I always show my clients that I see their process and I respect their process. And I don't have an expectation of what they should say or do. I'll just take whatever comes from them and I'm ready to work with that. I'm available to work with whatever they bring to our conversation. So it doesn't matter what kind of content they bring. Emotional, cognitive, creative, somatic, spiritual. We'll take all of this content and integrate that in our work together. A question that I sometimes get is, how do I know if I'm actually using a coaching mindset, if I actually embody the coaching mindset, or I'm just going through the motions? This is an excellent question, isn't it? And I guess if you're asking this question, if the question emerges in your head, that means that you are already being self-aware and you know that there may be this pattern of, going through the motions sometimes, how they say, like, fake it before you make it. So, and people who get curious about this, how do I not go through the motions? They want to be authentic and not follow a formal process, but to actually transform their way of being. So this separation of being a coach and doing coaching is super helpful to me here. Are you going through the motions or are you actually being in a different mode? I got this question once. I remember I was doing a one-day coach training workshop for a group of leaders. And when I introduced a coaching session structure, I got a question from one of the managers who said, now, how is this different from Q&A? Like when you ask your team member questions. And I'm sure if you remain self-reflective, you'll notice a shift inside of you. If you're just asking questions if you are asking questions because you have to ask questions and then you can't wait to hear the response so that you can ask another question, and you have a certain direction in your mind, probably, that you want your team member to take, then most likely you're not genuinely being in a coaching mindset. But they say it's really difficult for team leaders, for leaders in general, to be in a fully coaching mode when you are coaching or talking to your own team members. Because as their leader, you do have your own agenda. You do have some certain expectations and hopes, and you have a bigger picture. So of course you want your team to function well. But if you are coaching other people in organizations, so say if there are a few leaders coaching each other's team members, in this case, there's a higher chance of remaining less biased. I suggest that you create some checkpoints for yourself, like little checklists maybe that you can create for yourself with questions like, to what extent have I been considerate of the emotions of the other person? To what extent was I attuned to my own emotions during our conversation? To what extent was I taking into account the culture and the context of our interaction? Or to what extent was I ready to have the conversation physically, mentally, and emotionally? You don't just mark either yes or no, but you actually give yourself maybe a number on a scale, say from 1 to 10. And then you can track your progress. If this is something important to you, of course, and you want to be more mindful and intentional about this. When it comes to applying a coaching mindset in real life, there may be questions such as, how do I stay curious when I feel pressure to have answers? Or how can I use it with someone who just wants advice? These questions always get me very curious. It sounds to me as if the person who might be asking these questions is treating the coaching and a coaching mindset as a doing skill, not a being skill. So it sounds a little bit forced. In order to truly, genuinely embody this mindset, you need to trust the other person's ability. You need to trust that they may have ideas that are unique, creative, brilliant, and sometimes maybe even better than yours. You need to believe that other people are resourceful and that you don't have to save them. You don't have to help them. You're not the only source of wisdom. They are very, very capable of activating what they have inside, but they don't really realize it, given that they are in the right place, of course, and they do have the skills to do their work. So we are not talking about people who lack skills and therefore they don't know what to do because they're completely new to this, or they need to learn something. So basically, if you are working with capable people who have all the necessary skills but still get stuck, you need to trust that there is potential in them to arrive at their own answers. Even if you are a leader and you're the most experienced person in the room, it's always great to have the skill to get surprised, to be willing to be surprised by other people. That would be so boring to live if with experience, even with age, with life experience, we got all the answers and we have nothing new to discover, nothing new to learn from situations or people. Even when I talk to my children, they sometimes ask me questions or they sometimes say something that genuinely amazes me. And I'm thinking, wow, that's such a sharp observation. That is such a wonderful way to put it. So I allow myself to get amazed. And I make it a habit to get amazed by other people and to notice other people's strengths. I really think it's essential that we see people not as they are right now, but as they can be. And in order to see them as they can be, we need to pay attention to not only to their current stage or state, not only to their current way of thinking or being. We also need to know more about their vision and how they aspire to be. We need to see some strengths in them that can help them get there. A coaching mindset also comes with some humility. And I'm not asking you, if you're a leader, if you're a coach and leader, I'm not asking you to downplay your own experience, not to forget or put aside your own wisdom, life experience, professional experience. It all stays with you because that's what makes you you. And maybe that's one of the reasons why your team member decides to have those honest conversations with you and be led and guided by you. But we don't create the ultimate truth. We don't own the truth, even if it arises from our experience, because our own experience was processed by us in a certain way due to the way we are. You know, each of us has our own unique way of processing experience. So that's a really, really complex mechanism. We are not going to go into that in this episode. But basically, your own perspective resulted in a successful experience for you. And that's your own. There's no guarantee that another person will be able to replicate it. There are so many wonderful self-help books, but even with the abundance of learning resources, self-help books, podcasts, YouTube channels, free, paid, whatever, people are still looking for coaches. Why is that, you think? I believe because the people, they want to discover their own ways. I often talk about basic psychological needs in my trainings or podcasts, and there's this need of autonomy. We need to know and see the proof of our own ability to make choices, being in charge of something, being in control. We make our own choices and decisions. Knowing this is essential for us. And that's why coaching resonates with so many people. Honoring your experience, but also remaining humble and allowing another person's experience, potential, and greatness come through. This is what a coaching mindset is. As I already mentioned, there are a few habits you can cultivate to naturally arrive at this coaching-minded state. They are humility, willing to help the other person shine, seeing other person's strengths, seeing potential in people, remaining childlike, curious, and open, staying patient and present. I also invite you to notice your inner dialogue and any kind of the inner rush that you may be experiencing, such as when your inner voice tells you something's going wrong here in the coaching session. Why are they thinking so long? Why are they talking so fast? This self-talk can really distract you from staying present, and the tension may transfer to the coaching space. Mindfulness practice is a wonderful tool that helps to become aware of the inner dialogue and be in more control of that. When you're in more control, when you truly embody in the coaching mindset, it will show not only in your words, not only your questions. You know, most people are very well attuned to nonverbal signals, and some sources suggest that between 70 and 93% of communication is nonverbal, which means that even if your words sound like you're inviting someone to share and you use open and inviting wording, but if the energy is off, for example, tension in the room speaks against your words, or your body language speaks against your words, the person is not going to read the message. They're not going to feel invited to share or express themselves. If you want to make your message really impactful, no matter if that's an observation or a question, learn to invite yourself into this space. Having a coaching mindset doesn't mean that you now have no other option and you're trapped into this way of being, you know. It actually increases your range of being with others. You can choose to use it when the time is right. There will definitely be situations when your advice is needed, when a quick decision is needed, when your expertise is sought, and if the situation calls for it, do what is required and use your best judgment. However, when your goal is a long-term development of a person, their personal or professional growth, coaching mindset, and slowing down to connect and relate to another person and really be with them differently can be a game changer. Cultivating a coaching mindset, even if you are not a coach, may start with your language. Start showing up differently with more curiosity than judgment in your phrases. Some phrases that you can intentionally integrate into your daily conversations could be, I wonder, I'm curious. And you know what? When you are saying these phrases, you're actually becoming more curious. There may be some phrases that you may want to unlearn. For example, every time you feel an urge to say, let me tell you, do this, let me explain, you can say something like, help me understand. Resist the urge to jump in and give answers and solve the thing, even though it feels efficient and makes you look competent. We know that insight sticks better when it comes from the person. So asking questions like, what's your current thinking on this? What have you already tried? What's important about this for you? Will allow people to share, and you will let them hear their own thoughts. You'd be surprised how often they can figure it out mid-sentence. Another habit you can try to develop is to get comfortable with silence. Countless times I've seen my coaches not having the answer immediately to my questions, and that got them super agitated. I could see how hard they were trying to think of an answer, and they were completely stressed. So every time I told them in those situations, hey, we've got time. That's okay. You don't have to have the answer right now. So every time I see them searching for the answer, and I also sense that they're getting uncomfortable with not having an answer, I would intentionally lean back in my chair, and with my body posture, I'll create more space between us. So I would add some spaciousness to our conversation, showing them that I'm not rushing them. I'm accepting their time to think. Next thing, we already talked about putting your expert hat down sometimes, and you might be the expert, which is great, but the coaching mindset means knowing when to take that hat off, and you can always put it back on later. Checking in with yourself every time you have a conversation with someone. If your goal is really to support them and contribute to their long-term development and learning, you can ask yourself, does this person need my knowledge and experience right now? Or do they need space for their own knowledge to grow? Let me also introduce a more advanced practice and see if you want to give that a try. A coaching mindset also means getting good at holding tension, not jumping to resolve the tension. Sometimes it means not rushing to clean up confusion or discomfort, sitting with someone in the I don't know, or this is hard, or I'm afraid, and not making it go away immediately. Not saying like, okay, no problem, let's do this, or how about that? Let's try that. Have you thought about that? So such behaviors may sometimes be counterproductive because they may be the sign of avoiding uncertainty, not normalizing not knowing or discomfort, which may be a sign of growth. When you are jumping in to resolve something too fast, you may be conveying a message that it is not okay. It is not okay to be confused. It is not okay to be afraid. It is not okay to not have an answer. Well, we need to do something about that quickly. And actually, you want to convey the opposite message. You do want to arrive at the outcome and the result. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not meaning to say that we don't need outcomes or results or new thinking. We do want to make change happen. And we can get to a resolution without ignoring the uncomfortable piece. But actually sitting with discomfort, growing our inner capacity to deal with challenges, growing our resilience, embracing our helplessness for some time, and accepting ourselves the way we are being, that can grow our inner capacity. We don't want to get stuck in that muddy state for too long, but we don't have to force it out. That process is happening for a reason, and it may be part of resistance, which is helpful to address to move forward. Last but not least, it's always good to do some self-reflection and start with your own inner voice. You can't cultivate a coaching mindset with others if your own inner voice is still in a dictator mode. Notice how you talk to yourself. Are you impatient with your mistakes? Are you annoyed with your emotions? Do you rush to self-criticize? Do you tend to run away from the problem? If you're experiencing a negative emotion, are you trying to ignore it, sweep it under the rug, or move on to something and get yourself busy so that you don't have to deal with that? Is there an inner critic that you are listening to more often than you probably should? Do you leave space for your own uncertainty and not knowing? Self-reflection is the source from which our coaching mindset grows. So start there. Coaching mindset is not about asking clever questions or having a calm voice, really. It is about believing that people are capable, although not instantly, and staying with them in a special way that allows this to emerge. If you are a parent, teacher, leader, or just someone who wants to be an effective communicator, start small, and you'll see how one moment at a time may shift everything at the end. Thanks for being here with me today. If something in this episode reminded you that a coaching mindset isn't something you achieve, but something that you practice, then we are exactly where we need to be. If this felt like a conversation worth sharing, please send it to a colleague who might be in the thick of it too. I'd love to hear how it landed. Come find me on LinkedIn or drop me a message. And if you are looking for more solid ground as you grow your practice, head over to www.upthinkcoaching.com. We've got mentoring, supervision, and 2 powerful programs starting this fall. Our Level 2, PCC Path in September, and Level 1, ACC Path in November. Next time, we'll look at one of those real coaching moments when your client isn't moving. Nothing seems to shift, and progress feels out of reach. What do you do then? How do you stay present, grounded, and useful when things feel stuck? That's where we are going. I'll meet you there.